Which are the best panels in One Piece? Chapter 101 is a classic interstitial chapter, taking quite a lot of time to explain the mechanics of the Calm Belt and Reverse Mountain and heading a bunch of the why don't they just sail south to the Grand Line questions off at the pass. There's still some excellent action here though, mostly focused on the Straw Hats versus the sea itself, which I love. Good adventure needs struggle with nature. The sequence of Luffy using his balloon to save Mary is a visual standout. Great drama without a villain, and some fantastic technical art from Oda and his team as well. But the best panel, look, there's no contest, it is absolutely the Sea King's splash panel. First of all, the character design here is fantastic. Like, yes, most of these creatures were clearly designed to appear once and then never again, but one of One Piece's greatest strengths as a world is how weird it is. Its sheer number and variety of monsters and beasts and places, and this page is bursting with that promise. But also, there's scale going on here. It's a simple thing, but the going Merry on the nose of that big beast, how small it looks, how overpowered, how outmatched, how little it is next to an unknowably huge and terrifying world. That too is the spirit of adventure. Which are the best panels in One Piece? In Chapter 102, oh, Laboon. Anyway, the very first thing the Straw Hats encounter on the Grand Line is a giant whale that they get swallowed by, and the Going Merry loses its head, which, that ship is taking damage already, isn't it? And my favorite thing about this chapter is that it is Luffy being impatient and incapable of backing down that gets everyone in trouble. He's a good captain when he needs to be, but I like it when he's a dipshit too, and I like that his first challenge on the Grand Line is a problem that he cannot simply punch his way through. As for the best panel, though, it has to be this one. The giant squid, speared by rope darts, being dragged slowly towards the yawning void of the mysterious cabin on the island inside the whale. There's real menace to this imagery, with the way that the dark door is the focal point of the whole perspective, pulling the image into itself. Oda even renders the water around the squid pitch black as though there's blood spilling into it. It's a great little hook to heighten the stakes and the tension of the scene, to imply peril for the Straw Hats, and it sets up a very funny joke in the next chapter. Which are the best panels in One Piece? In Chapter 103, oh my, would you look at the time, it's Heartbreak O'Clock because it's time for Laboon's backstory to begin. But first, one of the funniest gags in the entire anime. Crocus, having just ratcheted up the tension by killing this giant squid, winds the Straw Hats the hell up by ignoring them, interrupting them, and undercutting the seriousness of the moment. It's funny in the manga, but it's fucking gold in the anime the way they did it, and it's good subtle storytelling for the old man too, that he doesn't take these rookie pirates even a little bit seriously. He has seen what a real pirate king looks like. This is of course also the introduction of Miss Wednesday, who will become important later, but as for a best panel, well, this chapter is short on bangers, but probably the most impactful panel is this one, of Crocus diving into Laboon's stomach and the skeletons of ships and fish and human beings littering his gut below. It's a dark image of death and peril on the high seas, a grim reminder of how suddenly a journey can end, and that does become thematically relevant in the very next chapter, so this is good tonal foreshadowing, if nothing else. Which are the best panels in One Piece? Chapter 104 is even more whale-themed heartbreak. There's a bit of long-term foreshadowing with Wednesday and Mr. Nine talking about the organization, and the story is taking yet another beat to play up how dangerous the Grand Line can be. It's a theme that returns a lot in One Piece. The world and fate can be cruel, but the thing that endures against that is, well, hope and love and the promise that the sun will rise tomorrow. It's hokey, but it's effective theming. Which is where Luffy comes in, of course. He listens to Laboon's tragic backstory, apparently not paying any attention, and then breaks the main mast of the Going Merry to start a fight with a whale the size of a small island, which is where we get what I think is the best panel of the chapter, Luffy staring off into the distance and picking his nose, because it looks like he's disengaged and thoughtless, ignoring Laboon's story like he does so many other things. But if you know Luffy, then you also know that this is the moment that he understands what needs to be done to set Laboon free of his grief. When Luffy goes quiet like that, it's because he's listening, especially to people's hearts, and that is gonna come up later. Which are the best panels in One Piece? In Chapter 105, having resolved the grief of Laboon, it's back to world building, as the comic is being really careful about pacing out its info dumps and breaking them up with story. Here, we get to learn about log poses and the chaotic magnetism of the Grand Line, a convenient story mechanic that forces the Straw Hats to always sail onwards and never turn back. It's also the first time the journey is given a real geographical goal, a place that needs to be reached, beyond just step 1, go to Grand Line, step 2, question mark, and step 3, Pirate King. I like the panel of the island chains a lot. It's almost video game-like in the pick a route and follow it sort of way, like a roguelike. It invites you to fantasize about what might have been if the Straw Hats had picked any other first destination. But the best panel is Laugh Tale. Crocus is darkened in the foreground, severely relaying the story of the final island, as behind him, these hazy, indistinct island shapes rise out of the mists of myth and legend. There's a real sense of mystery here, the promise of something amazing just waiting to be discovered. It's all about building excitement for the journey ahead, and good lord, it works on me. Which are the best panels in One Piece? Chapter 106 introduces us to Whisky Peak and its unusually friendly population, but it also features a standout sequence of panels as the Straw Hats battle the unpredictable ocean. The panels shrink in size and crowd together on the page more and more tightly as the chaos mounts, communicating the exhausting rush of trying to deal with everything that's happening really well. It's a great use of paneling and gutters to control the pace of how the reader experiences time and thus set the mood for how they perceive the action that's being depicted. I adore the panel of Zoro hunched over, having just been punched by Nami for sleeping through the whole thing. He's just so confused, the poor guy. What an expression. But the best panel? It's the final one. Whisky Peak is obviously suspicious, but this panel of the town shadowed under the cactuses with the mysterious and murderous unluckies perched over the scene. The fact that Miss Friday is a vulture is not subtle. And then a pitch black sun, overwhelmingly huge on the horizon, slowly setting into the sea. Like, come on, that is the textbook definition of ominous fucking imagery. Which are the best panels of One Piece? In Chapter 107, well, remember how Zoro spent most of the East Blue Saga in various stages of being critically wounded? He's all better now, so it's time for him to get the spotlight. Whisky Peak is a scam, of course, run by Baroque Works, which finally gets introduced properly with an info dump from Zoro, who remembers them from his bounty hunting days. He really gets to shine here. We get the absolutely badass reveal that the cactuses are actually just weird hills covered in the gravestones of everyone Baroque Works has killed. That is metal as fuck. And in the light of the moon, Zoro takes on 100 bounty hunters all by himself. And so, yeah, obviously the best panel is him silhouetted against the moon holding up his sword, right? Well, yeah, that's a valid take. That panel rules, but I think the best one is actually 2 pages later. This shot of him close up, backlit by the moon, so bright that his front is covered in pitch black darkness. Zoro is a scary motherfucker, and here we get to see what he looks like from the perspective of anyone who doesn't actually know him. Like a demon out of hell. Which are the best panels of One Piece? Chapter 108 continues the Zoro Show, an absolute clip compilation of epic moments that I cannot fucking wait to see realized in the live-action show. I will be so mad if they skip Whisky Peak. It does mean the chapter is narratively a little bit thin, of course. Mostly we get some character building for Zoro building a relationship with his new swords. We get a look into how he thinks about them and how he approaches his swordsmanship, which is cool. But, like, it really is just a humiliation parade for the poor Baroque Work goons who absolutely cannot catch a break with him. Still, we do see Zoro having to work to beat them. It's not like he can just take a bullet head on, not yet anyway, and he does dodge their big swings, but he's clearly also just having so much goddamn fun. And in turn, the chapter is fun. This whole thing is just an immensely good time and a great relief from whale-related heartbreak and mysterious legendary portents. As for a best panel, well, probably it's the one where he licks the blood off his own face smiling. Again, Zoro is a scary motherfucker, and here, he looks like a straight-up anime villain. It's just a lot of fun to see him cut loose. Which are the best panels of One Piece? Chapter 109 is the end of Zoro's one-man show, taking on Ms. Wednesday, Mr. 9, and Mr. 8, who, despite being dangerous, turn out to be more on the Team Rocket level of threat. In fact, it's almost like Oda is trying to gentle them at this point, make them seem sympathetic, like underdogs who are struggling because they're in over their heads for some reason. There's some good comedy beats in this chapter, like Mr. 9 accidentally cartwheeling himself off a building, that's funny, or Ms. Wednesday struggling to get Karoo to do what he's told. There's also some solid action shots, like Zoro clashing with Mr. 9's metal bat of guts, or Ms. Wednesday spinning her peacock slasher as Zoro crouches, momentarily disabled by hypnosis with a heavy shadow over his face. Which, by the way, just saying, don't attack a guy who looks like that. That kind of shadow on someone's face is a character design clue not to do that. The chapter doesn't really have any clear bangers for its panels, but the best one is probably Zoro finishing off Mr. 8, just because the posing, composition, and rendering is really solid here. Like, this is a classic dramatic samurai death blow. Which are the best panels in One Piece? As the trivia goes, Ms. Wednesday was never supposed to be more than a side character until Oda drew her with her hair down and was like, oh, she kind of looks like a princess that way, and oops, suddenly a huge part of the Alabasta story arc is changed. It's relatable, writing can be like that, but it does mean that the story of Whisky Peak swerves rather noticeably in chapter 110, very suddenly switching from the Zoro solo samurai show to a Save the Princess drama. Suddenly there's new Baroque Works agents who are much more powerful. Suddenly the roles of several characters change completely, with Mr. 9 dramatically sacrificing himself. Suddenly there's intrigue as the mysterious boss of Baroque Works is sending assassins to protect his secrets. I don't think it's One Piece's most elegant storyline swerve, to be honest, but it will lead to great things down the line. As for a best panel, I don't know, this chapter doesn't really have any bangers, but I do love this panel. Zoro comedically dragging Luffy away from the fight like, okay, this was fun, but I'm gonna mind my own business now, bye, because it's just so casual and unbothered. It makes me chuckle every time I see it. Which are the best panels in One Piece? Chapter 111 is rapidly working to establish backstory for the Alabasta saga, with Nami extorting poor Mr. 8 ruthlessly in exchange for saving Vivi, but also to get information out of him. And I do like that in this panel you can kind of tell from the sweat drop on her head and the incongruity between the angry eyebrows and the smile that Nami is bluffing here. She's negotiating. She was never going to let Vivi just die if they didn't pay up. She's haggling for a better price. The bounty hunters who Zoro was mopping the floor with a moment ago also keep getting more and more humanized by the story. Miss Monday takes a hit for Vivi as she tries to escape, and structurally this helps the story establish the menace and power level of the higher-ranked agents as they simply mow her down. The best panel, though, is Zoro intercepting Mystified's explosive booger, splitting it on his sword, because it's just so clean. The cross-legged pose, holding his sword with one hand on the blade, the use of white negative space to imply a moment of slowed down time where the background falls away. That is a goddamn entrance right there. Which are the best panels of One Piece? In Chapter 112, well, first of all, it's a bit of a comedy break, with Luffy so enraged that Zoro has beat up all the nice people that gave him food that he instantly starts a fight to the death with him. That's a funny joke now, but it's the reason that entire governments are going to get toppled later. There is also a narrative point to the comedy, though. First of all, it demonstrates that the Straw Hats do not yet actually give a damn about Alabasta's plight that much. That comes later. And it establishes some relative power levels. Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine are the lowest-ranked Baroque Works officers. Those are the elite core of their fighting forces. But the story takes care here to establish that to Luffy and Zoro, they remain unimportant chump fodder. Baroque Works will give them both trouble later, but for now, the Straw Hats are still very overpowered for the first steps of the Grand Line. Thus, the best panel is the final one of the chapter, the giant splash page of Luffy and Zoro swatting the agents aside. It's damn well drawn, and Oda clearly took some extra time to render his boys as badass as possible, but it's also setting up a few bowling pins. The Straw Hats seem way overpowered for the task right now, and there's gonna be a real strike to that confidence later. Which are the best panels of One Piece? Having established just how strong Luffy and Zoro are, Chapter 113 takes the time to establish that the strongest Straw Hat is and always will be Nami, who can kick both of their asses simultaneously. I adore this panel with Nami coolly negotiating rescue prices while Zoro and Luffy fight like children. Like, what a perfect embodiment of their group dynamic. And the moment when Nami tries to walk away, assuming Baroque Works doesn't know what she looks like and Mr. 13 draws perfect fan art of all three of them, that's just classic comedy. But the best panel comes later, and it's kind of a small thing. As poor Igarim's boat is blown to Kingdom Come, Vivi fixates on the explosion, staring into the flames over the course of several panels, and the best panel is here, when Nami sees that she's biting her lip so hard that it's bleeding. This is the moment that Nami realizes that Vivi isn't just some spoiled princess playing politics, she's a girl trying all on her own to save her home from evil men. This is when she realizes just how much she and Vivi have in common, and it is the moment that Nami becomes willing to die to help her save her people. Which are the best panels in One Piece? Chapter 114 sets up the pace of the journey to Alabasta. It won't be a quick hop and a skip. Oda is, as ever, determined to make it an adventure. But who cares about that? My girl Robin is here finally! Her features will soften somewhat over the years, but my god, I love how angular and sharp she is in her first appearances. What a character design. Anyway, she's testing the Straw Hats here, both threatening them with doom and offering them an easier path, and when Luffy refuses because he won't let anyone else chart his course for him, honestly, my reading is that Robin is genuinely impressed by him. The best panel, though, is, well, maybe I'm reading a little bit too much into it, but I think it's this one. Robin is explaining to the Straw Hats all the dangers and certain doom that lies ahead, but look at the composition here. The Straw Hats stand free under the open sky, and it is Robin who is quite literally boxed in and constrained behind bars, almost as though she's the one who's more trapped than they are. Huh, well, isn't that interesting? Now, it could also just be that Oda is using the railing here as a convenient visual barrier between her and the Straw Hats, but let's just say that this man has been known to foreshadow things.